Hello and welcome to ATP Report. I'm your host, Barry Nussbaum. Remember, I ask everybody every week to take out your cell phone and text the message TRUTH, T-R-U-T-H, in the message box and send it to the number 88202. You'll be signed up to get this episode and all of our content from American Truth Project in the palm of your hand on your cell phone, absolutely for free. Our guest today is friend of ATP, our correspondent to all the knowledge about Islam. We have the world famous Robert Spencer with us. He's a published author of over 20 books. He's the founder and editor of Jihad Watch. He is the American scholar on Islam. Welcome back, Robert.
Always good to talk to you, Barry. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on today. So let's start off with this guy that you wrote about, Al-Khalidi, 74. He died in Jordan last month from COVID. This is a guy that over the years has made some outlandish statements about Jews and Israelis. He's called them pigs and devils. He's cited numerous Quranic verses claiming, quote, Jews are leading the Western Crusaders in their war against Islamic nation. He makes all the quotes about how Jews are the pigs, the devils in the land of Palestine. He talks about the lions of Al-Qassam brigades that are killing the Jews in Israel. And eventually we will rid the world of Jews. Now, a guy this horrible, what? How is he a famous guy to be revered in the world of Islam when he passes away?
Well, we have to remember, Barry, that everything he said that you just listed there is all based on Islamic teaching. The idea of Jews as pigs comes from the Quran, chapter 2, verses 63 to 65, chapter 5, verses 59 and 60, and chapter 7, verse 166. Allah transforms the disobedient Jews into apes and pigs. And it's a staple of jihadi rhetoric to this day that the Israelis are the children of apes and pigs, or the brothers of apes and pigs, and consequently to be held in utter contempt and hatred. The Jews are the worst enemies of the Muslims, according to chapter 5, verse 82 of the Quran. And there are numerous other anti-Semitic verses throughout the Quran that make it clear that the Jews are constantly scheming against the Muslims, are the Muslims' enemies, and so on. So Al-Khalidi is really just expressing mainstream Islamic thought. And that's why he was so revered, and why even now the head of American Muslims for Palestine, which is ostensibly a respectable organization, is eulogizing him in the most fulsome terms as if he were someone to be respected, because this kind of thought is mainstream all over.
All right, let me stop you right there. Here's the part that really bothers me. You quote everything this man said, and it is horrible. And then you quote the praise heaped on top of him, which makes the horribleness even worse. Why is it, Robert, that nobody but you happens to point this out?
Well, very few people in the West have read the Quran or think that it's relevant to this issue at all. As a matter of fact, the whole enterprise of the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, so-called, is based on ignoring Quranic and Islamic imperatives regarding the Muslims and the Jews. If the American foreign policy experts, so-called, would study the Quran and study Islam, they would know a whole lot more about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict than they do today, because every last Palestinian leader, from Mahmoud Abbas to Khalid Mashal to Ismail Haniyeh to every last one of them, they always situate the conflict in terms of Islam. And yet that's completely off the radar as far as the US State Department is concerned. They don't have any interest in it whatsoever, and they think it's just rhetorical window dressing, when actually it's the key to understanding the Palestinian Arab perspective on the whole conflict.
Well said. And I wish more people would read Jihad Watch by you so they would understand this. So let's talk history a little bit. I was very intrigued by the Super Bowl, not what was on the field, but what happened in the stands, Robert. You had 70,000+ people there. The tickets were very hard to get. They were very expensive, and it was in Los Angeles. So it was a who's who of celebritydom in the stands. all of them maskless, including the governor, all the mayors, and most of the politicians of the state of California. However, in spite of the fact that there are massive mandates for masks in California, at the Super Bowl, you didn't see any. And yet, when the kids went back to school the next day, they had to wear masks under all kinds of threats. So the celebrities, and I've got a list like this long of the who's who of Hollywood and music, both famous and people I haven't heard of that seem to be famous. Why is it that there are masks for thee, but not for me? And that's okay.
Well, unfortunately, Barry, this is a hallmark of authoritarian regimes throughout history, that the elites are exempt from the rules that they make for the common people. As a matter of fact, you go back to the foundation of Anglo-American law, the Magna Carta in the year 1215. The idea was to change the idea that there would be one set of rules for the nobility and another set of rules for the common people, and to establish the principle of one law for all people. And that's been the hallmark of free societies ever since, until now. But of course, now what we have are free societies that are becoming less free. And as a result, we are seeing once again the idea recurring of elites not feeling themselves bound by what they force upon us. And so, unfortunately, this is a sign of the incipient authoritarianism that the left is imposing upon us everywhere.
I learned something really interesting from none other than you, Robert Spencer, which was in the Middle Ages, when Islam was being founded by Muhammad, the idea of women only wearing masks was instituted. It was a fascinating series of articles I read by you. Can you give us a little brief history of where this idea came from and why the masks only for women and not for men?
Sure. In the first place, Muhammad, according to Islamic tradition, ordered that his wives be veiled so that nobody would be able to see them and lust after them, because that would be an insult to him as the husband of these various women. He had between 11 and 13 wives, depending on how some of them are counted. But in any case, they all had to be covered up so that only Muhammad would be able to see them at all. And this was a sign of also the respect that the believers were supposed to have for the household of Muhammad. Then later on, the veiling order was extended to all Muslim women. And there are hadiths, reports of Muhammad's words and deeds, that have him saying that women should cover everything but the face and the hands, which you see often in Islamic societies. And then sometimes you even see them covering their faces. That's an extension of the same principle, because if the whole thing is designed to prevent men from being tempted, if men are still tempted by a face, then you cover the face.
And I remember something about it. It seems to control them in a way. As everyone knows from face masks, it's hard to get enough air. You feel stifled. It's hard to communicate. You're sort of in a portable cage, so to speak. Is there a control mechanism involved in this as well?
Oh, there's no doubt about it whatsoever. Women are decidedly subordinate in Islam. Most notoriously in chapter 4, verse 34, there is the mandate to beat women. It says, from whom you fear disobedience. They don't even have to be disobedient. You just have to be afraid they might be someday. There's no beating of disobedient men. And women are also essentially reduced to the status of commodities by the very idea of polygamy, where you have one man, but not an equal relationship as marriage in the West is envisioned, but as commodities up to 4, and then you can also have the sex slaves. This is all mandated in the Quran. So the covering is kind of a sign of that this woman is the possession of this one individual and nobody else has even visual access.
Honestly, the only word that comes to mind is it's disgusting. I've never understood how Americans, either Muslim Americans or non-Muslim Americans who are sympathetic, will say, oh no, it's a sign of freedom. It's a sign of independence. It's a sign that they are powerful women with certain rights that are protected by their covering. It seems to me the words don't match the facts. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, that's just PR. That's just designed to fool complacent Westerners into thinking that there's something wrong with speaking out against this. The fact is, you know, it's so crazy, Barry. There's such insanity in the world today, and one example of it is World Hijab Day, which is, I believe, February 2nd every year now. All these Western feminists put on the hijab to show their solidarity with Muslim women who were supposedly oppressed by non-Muslims who dislike their wearing hijab. Actually, I don't know of any case. I'm sure that somewhere that some Muslim woman has actually been harassed by some non-Muslim lout. That's unacceptable wherever it may have happened. But the fact is, I know plenty of cases where Muslim women have claimed to have been harassed by some non-Muslim lout and then turned out to have been lying. Meanwhile, all over the Islamic world and also in the West, in Texas, in Mississauga, Ontario, and elsewhere, we have seen Muslim women who don't wear hijab being brutalized or even killed by their own family members for not wearing it. So if the Western feminists really had a clue and really cared about women's rights, they would be having no hijab day, which has also been started up by a few ex-Muslim women very courageously, but not this World Hijab Day that prevails now.
Yeah, it seems to me to be a celebration of sort of a slavery in a sense, and the idea that Western people with liberal values would support that is beyond disgusting. Speaking of just outside the bounds of human decency, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has just now declared emergency powers to move against the Freedom Convoy. The Canadian government says they're going to freeze the asset of every trucker participating in the protests. They're going to cancel their insurance policies. They're going to seize their bank accounts. They're going to grab their trucks. I mean, it sounds almost like fascism. What's your take on Justin Trudeau as the leader of Canada, especially as of today? I think 5 or 6 of the provinces in Canada have said no more mask mandates, but not the federal government.
That's right. Justin Trudeau is a fascist. Fascism is quintessentially not the control of all the means of production, as in communism, where the state becomes essentially the owner of everything, but rather the control of all the means of production by means of forcing the various means of production to toe the government line. And Trudeau, by invoking this and trampling upon the civil liberties of these protesters, is showing himself to have been telling the truth when he was asked years ago in 2013 what the country he most admired was, and he said China, because their authoritarian government allows them to get things done directly. They don't have to worry about parliaments and give and take and debate and compromise. And now we see that's the kind of government he does want and that he's bringing to Canada. And what's really scandalous is that Joe Biden has not denounced him and that he hasn't fallen from a no confidence vote. It's an astonishing world historical development, the destruction of freedom in Canada.
You know, it really, you raise a really interesting point here. So many times in history, these tyrants don't rise from nowhere and surprise everyone with their agenda. They let you know ahead of time what they believe in and what they plan to do. Lenin did it, Mao did it, Hitler did it. They write books about it, they make speeches, and if you just listen, they'll tell you what their agenda is going to be. Justin Trudeau did it years ago, and now his fondest dreams of total control over Canada are being at least implemented with the attempt to be communist China. And I guess we'll see whether or not he's successful in the next coming days, because, as I said, the provinces are saying no, while Trudeau from the federal level is saying yes. There will be some sort of conflict at some point. I'm rooting for the provinces instead of the federal government in Canada, and I assume you are too.
Absolutely.
So, Robert, tell people where they can find out about you and follow you on social media.
Yeah, I'm at jihadwatch.org, updated every day with news and commentary about jihad activity in the United States and around the world, and at Jihad Watch RS on Twitter. There is also a Jihad Watch Facebook page. I bet you won't be able to find it because it is so shadow banned, but it does exist.
I find it. I work to find you because I think you're worth the effort. And I would
Very
urge
kind.
all of our viewers out in ATP land, follow Robert Spencer. You will learn some things from him that you won't find anywhere else. And Robert's a scholar. He gives you the source of what he's teaching you so you can understand it and teach others. Thanks for coming on today with ATP. I sure appreciate your viewership today. I want to remind you, please sign up for our text message alert system. Simply text the word truth and send it to the number 88202. You'll be signed up instantly and you'll get all of Robert Spencer on ATP Report absolutely for free. Again, thanks for coming on with us today. I'm Barry Nussbaum.